Mesquite, hello Nevada, and the rest of the world, and welcome to the Mesquite Weekly. The 2018 election cycle will begin in the state of Nevada with the primary election on June 12th. And don't forget, early voting starts on June 1. Joining us today is Annie Black. We would like to welcome Ms. Black and thank her for granting us an interview and debating the issues that pertain to the election of the City Council. Ms. Black is a contender for the City Council seat number 4. Ms. Black is an area realtor, 37 years of age, a mother of 2 sons, and has family ties to Mesquite going back more than 30 years. She has developed an affection and love for Mesquite and has engaged along with her family investing in the community for most of her life. She is running for City Council because she intends and proclaims that she will do her best to make Mesquite a better place.
I'm a small business owner since I graduated high school in 1999, so business and entrepreneurship are my passions. That's a couple of the main things that I want to work on when I get onto the council. I think as far as what I have to bring to the council, I'm probably the only candidate in seat 4 that has tangible, actual physical results in this arena. I just organized a event where I brought almost 30 candidates running to represent Mesquite citizens up to Mesquite. We had over 150 people come out to the event. The month before that, I did our Congressional District 4, we had a debate, and we had about 90 people at that event. I've been involved in politics and public service since roughly 2005, whether it be lobbying for the citizens out in Littlefield or volunteering on campaigns. So that's a little bit about my history and what I can bring to the table in the political arena.
You will be one of the youngest candidates, ever to run for the City Council. And I understand that you're in a town that's 65. That the voting population in this town is 67% over the age of 64. How would you address that issue or that concern, or is it a concern?
Well, I think when I tell them about myself, they understand that I do have the experience. It just requires. Yeah, I think when people see me, sometimes they assume that when you're younger you don't have as much experience, but I believe it's actually quite the opposite. I am the one with the most experience, so when I explain that, and I think actually the results that I'm having are a lot of people are saying they're excited that there's someone young, someone that's not been here for 20 plus years necessarily living in, I've been in Mesquite grown up here, but not maybe entrenched in the old ways of thinking, so maybe a new outside. What I hear is fresh blood. That's what I hear a lot. People are excited about it.
Often. I may be old, but I recognize something that when you get older, you get stoic, you get set in your ways. And, we need some fresh blood. Absolutely right.
That's such a strange thing. I hate to say that, but you'd be surprised how many times a day I hear that.
Yeah. But it's tough to do in a community like this because of the fact that, there's so many older voters here. On the issue of economic development, Mesquite has always, stressed that they need additional business they need to develop in order to continue to grow. And some individuals have indicated that growth is not necessarily a good thing because, one, resources in the valley are scarce as far as water is concerned. Resources are scarce as far as labor is concerned. And economic development requires additional resources be dedicated to the economic development. So those are the concerns that have been raised. How would you address those as a council member, and what would you do, to alleviate those concerns, or what would you do action-wise to get these economic development concerns? A two-part question.
So as the first part of the question is resources, correct? Well, I think if we're concerned about resources, then we need to stop building homes. If we're continuing to build homes without growing our business, we're creating a community of just a place for people to live, and unfortunately I feel like that doesn't keep people here. We have a very welcoming, open, friendly community, but I do hear that people want more restaurants, they want more activities, more shops, more things to do. So I think if resources are truly a concern as far as economic development is concerned, then we need to revisit whether we should be building as many homes as we're building, because that's also a strain on resources as well. What was the second part of that question?
Second part of the question is how would you obtain the economic development? What can a city council member do, or what avenues will you select in order to develop the economy in Mesquite as a city council member?
Okay, so as a city council member, the city council's established the Mesquite Regional Business Group. They're working to bring more businesses to Mesquite. The Chamber of Commerce is working to help support existing businesses. I think what we could do, some of the things we could do is we could perhaps incentivize some of these owners that own shopping centers, for example, like Bulldog Plaza. We could maybe incentivize them to with some of the RDA money that we have, $5.5 million worth of RDA money. Maybe we can use some of that and redirect it to incentivize them to lease some of that space or offset some of the rents for new businesses that want to start, because capital is generally one of the biggest hurdles with small business. And we know that since World War II, small business has been the main creator in new jobs. So it's important that we focus on that. I think we need to focus on seeing what businesses have worked in our community, examining why, and then using that knowledge to help maybe, I've heard such organizations as like a small business, an SBA, helping people to start new businesses and understand that this is a great place to start a business, tax structure wise, but you have to understand the summers are slow, you have to have money in reserves, so there's, access to grant money, access to loans. There's multiple ways that we can help, but I think the first thing to do is to isolate the businesses that have been successful and try to figure out why, and to help educate new business owners what they need to do to thrive and survive in our community.
Your focus on it as being very important is keeping Mesquite safe. I suppose in light of many things that have impacted the rest of the nation, Mesquite is still fairly safe, but it takes one incident. We've had one recently. Besides from that, there are other issues that have been elaborated nationally. Okay, Mesquite to some degree is impacted. The city council meeting that you were at, and they discussed an item, the school budget, school district. Mm-hmm. And one of them, they wanted 2 safety officers for the school district, but there was no budget. Is that something Mesquite would have to fund? But anyway, keeping all that in mind, okay, safety and security, your take on it, please.
Well, I think our first role, most importantly, is to keep the first role of government, one of the primary roles is to keep people safe. And especially in light of the shooting in Las Vegas, and it seems to be sort of an epidemic. The school shootings, just shootings in general, are kind of getting out of hand. As far as one of the topics you brought up, which was school safety, I don't know how likely it is we're going to get money for a resource officer for the school, another resource officer. We already have one, which the city pays for. I don't know the likelihood, given CCSD's budget right now, that we would get another resource officer. But I have had multiple members of our community who are retired police officers in different situations come to me and say, we have a vast pool of people who are either retired veterans or retired police officers who might be able to put together a group to have a presence at school. Unfortunately, I don't know, and this is something we need to look into, if CCSD would even allow something like that to happen, how we could maybe create our own little task force to be at the school, because from what I'm told by Police Chief Tanner, if there's a presence at the school, knock on wood, they've never had a shooting or an incident at a school with a police presence there. So, minus maybe, and when I say that, I mean that there's like a police car sitting out front. As far as how, safety in general for our city, that's a huge reason why a lot of people come to Mesquite. So I think it's integral that we really maintain being safe, support our law enforcement and our first responders, even going as far as fire and EMS. By the nature of our community being a retirement community, we have a lot of people that I'm sure are concerned how close is a hospital, how good is your medical treatment, your EMS services. So these are all things that are really, really important that I think are definitely my top priority.
I've also heard that one of the major one of the major expenditures for the city is for first responders, providing ambulance services. And it's like 25% of the city budget. Are we going to continue to absorb these deficits, or do we have a way to alleviate these deficits? Because the first responders certainly are getting reimbursed by Medicare for this. Mm-hmm. And like I said, 65% of the 67% of the population is on Medicare, unfortunately. Right. And they're the most lucrative, they're the most users of the service.
Right. And the lowest payers.
And the lowest payers, right?
Right.
So, as a city, I mean, what can the city council do? Do we continue to absorb the costs, or what avenues do we have to explore?
My opinion on that topic would be that we need to inform the public of the situation. When you tell a lot of people, in my position paper I mentioned the interfacility transport is $2.5 million in our last budget. When people hear that, they are blown away. But I guess the moral of the story to me is we have to educate people, and we have to let the citizens of Mesquite decide if we want to continue to carry that burden. Because at the end of the day, if you get sick or hurt or you need ambulance service, I would guess that that's pretty important. Maybe not so much on the other side of it when you don't need it, but when you do need it, it's very important. And so I don't necessarily think that I should make that decision. I think we should educate people in this community, let them know what we're paying, what the deficit is, and I think Chief Andrus is working really hard to educate people. He's putting out numbers of incidents and what the fire and EMS are doing to educate people about where that money's going and try to explain how it all works. And then if people think, yes, that's something we should continue, then we should. And if they think we shouldn't, then it's something I think the people should decide, not me necessarily. I think that I'm sure you're aware of the study that they did to figure out, where are we spending the money, what measures could we take to try to alleviate some of the cost. And at the last council meeting, Chief Andrus came and gave an update on what they've been doing, and they're going to revisit it in 6 months. And I think that we can definitely work on it, and I'm open to any resources you have to share.
Those are the two topics that you have already addressed.
Mm-hmm.
That I wanted to talk about. Is there anything here that you wanted to elaborate on these topics? Okay.
Yeah, sure. I think city council retirement is going to be a big one. So one of the issues that I think is probably not as interesting as the others is the retirement of a lot of our city staff. And if you go down to the city, you get to talking to our city manager, department heads, you realize that I would guesstimate probably close to 2/3 of our heads of departments are nearing retirement in the next 1 to 3 years. That would be my guesstimate. And I think that's really exciting because we are going to have a fresh council. We'll have some fresh new people in our city, a new city manager in the next couple of years. So to me, I think that's a really exciting thing that's coming up, and it will impact the direction of our city for a long time. So to me, it's very critical that, especially in the city manager role, the council hires the best candidate for that job, and that person's ultimately going to select the candidates that fill the heads of departments and, like I said, influence the direction of our city for a long time. So that's something that's really exciting to me, and I'm looking forward to being part of that.
The next item on our discussion list pertains to, and I will select an item on here that you already answered.
Okay.
And we'll maybe get some more details on that discussion. You'll also have an opportunity to talk about anything else on here, okay? But you indicated the most that attendance at the city council meetings, okay? I mean, you say better late than never. Do you feel that you have a lot of catch-up to do? And you get familiar with everything that's going on? Or I know you've addressed it recently. Can you elaborate how recently?
Yes, absolutely. I think there's a lot of catch up to do. Fortunately, all of the council meetings, I was just reviewing one this morning from December 12th about workforce housing. They're all on video. So when I was watching that one this morning, I actually was contemplating this issue, and I know that it's an important issue. That I'm going to go back at least for the last two years and watch all of the recorded videos that are on the city's website. You know, when it comes to that question, I'm going to be totally honest, as I was with that question. Yes, optimally, it would be great if we had city council candidates who have attended every meeting as far back as we have, but the reality is most of the candidates have not. So yes, there's catch up to do. I'm going to do it. Yeah, so I'm going to do it.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, most people don't even know there's an archive. Okay, so yes, it's one way to, as a matter of fact, you know, I'm not here all the time, so I keep
Right.
track of what's going on in the city.
Yeah, it's nice too because I was taking, you know, I was sitting there at meetings kind of trying to, you have the agenda and you try to remember everything, but you can't, so it's nice to be able to go back and really absorb the information because those meetings can be long and there's a lot of information, so it's...
I kind of made a joke to Al and says, Al, you know, I got such a headache last time. It was 2 hours long. He says, how do you handle this? What, once a week? He's got the technical everything. He says, only got
tech goes like 20 minutes.
He said, I got 2.5 years left. But you know he loves his job. He's going to run again.
He does. He loves
Okay.
it.
Anything that you wanted to elaborate on? I mean, I know Barbara did justice, but you know, you can't possibly, you know, she can't possibly write on everything. So anything here that you want to maybe elaborate a little bit on?
Something, and I don't know if you'll want to use this, so I'm just going to throw it out there, but something that I found interesting when reading was we go to the, each candidate had an opportunity to answer their 3 revenue and expenses, their 3 top revenue and expenses. And I actually cut this out and put it in my wallet to remind myself because I think this is critically important and I don't know if everybody caught it, but one of my opponents, Karen Fielding, her top 3 expense and revenue priorities, the one that caught me was property tax revenue, increasing business permits and taxes. So it's right here, kind of to me in black and white, literally, that Karen plans to raise taxes. I do not plan to do that. I'm not saying taxes will not get raised because I obviously can't guarantee that, but I'm certainly not going to be the candidate that's going to just outright roll over and let it happen. So I will fight to keep taxes low. I understand that our community, the nature of our community, we have a lot of retired people that live here that are on fixed incomes. Property taxes are a huge thing. Just 1% change in that could mean thousands of dollars every year for each member of our community. And I think it's important to have somebody that's going to fight against that happening.
I'd like to ask you a little bit further.
Sure.
The city council is constantly under barrage, you know, for emotional appeals to provide more funding, raises, et cetera, et cetera. It's very difficult to deny, especially very popular, I suppose, departments or popular endeavors, okay, to deny that funding or those raises. The only question is, you know, yes, I think you are concerned with fiscal responsibility, and sometimes it's a conflict because we need to raise revenues when we start, you know, providing additional funding when we do that. How do you see doing that? I know you say it may be taxes may be a situation. I've heard people maybe even talk about a bond issue. Is that similar to, you know, exerting a tax?
A bond issue for the ball fields, is that what you're talking about? I don't...
In general.
So in lieu of raising, just so I'm clear on the question, in lieu of raising
Well,
taxes?
we have a dilemma. Do we cut resources, do we cut services, or do we increase taxes?
Right.
And it's a delicate balance.
Mhm.
And you mentioned that the balance is, you don't want to increase revenues. Or do
Well,
we then decrease services? Or-
right. So that's a great question. Obviously, there's two options. As you said, we can either cut services or we can increase revenue. There's other ways to increase revenue outside of raising taxes. My ultimate suggestion would be to grow small business and to grow business and to keep developing our town, because we do make money off of businesses and we make money off of building homes. I think those are better avenues. I always err on the side of industry to raise more money than raising taxes.
Great answer. Marijuana being one of those businesses.
Yes.
Oh, even though my moral compass says no.
I think I can bring a lot of things to the table on the council. What I would say we should work on over the next 4 years, which I would focus on working on, which I've already said, is keeping Mesquite safe. That's a huge reason why myself and a lot of other people come here. We are growing, so I think it's, with growth comes issues of keeping the small town community feel, and safety needs to become a focus really, and maintain our safe community for our citizens. And then also developing businesses. I'm not in favor of raising taxes. I'm in favor of growing our economy to bring in more revenue. And yes, perhaps we do need to cut some things from our budget, but those are things that I think as I get into council, I'll be able to examine a little bit more. And I will, for sure. So those are my goals on the council, and I'm gonna work really hard to represent all of the citizens of Mesquite. I'm out there every single day. My goal every day is to speak with at least 80 households and a couple of businesses, and I think that after the election I'll continue to do that. Maybe not 80 a day, but I think it's important that the council gets out into the community and talks to people. And a big problem that I see is there's a disconnect between what's happening at the council and what people know in the community about what the council's getting done. And there are good, productive things happening. I just don't always think that people are aware of it.
Well, there you have it. This is Annie Black, and she will be for the City Council seat number 4. Annie, I would like to thank you for appearing with us on this show.
Thank you for having me. I think it's awesome what you're doing. I really appreciate it.